Hi, 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 hi! Hey, everybody! So let's get to painting, guys. Welcome! I'm Erin, for those who don't know me, for those who couldn't tell by my erinbunpaints page name. We're on Facebook Live today, and what I'm going to be doing is recreating my beautiful painting step by step. So what I'll be doing is I'll be displaying mine. I'm going to move this forward. I'm going to keep that here, and you can paint along with me. So if you want to get all of your materials ready, you can. What I'll be using, everybody, is 5 different paint colors. I use white, black, red, yellow, and phthalo blue, but any blue is fine. And then my paintbrushes, I have 3 different sizes. So I have a large flat, a medium round, and a small round. Otherwise, I have a cup of paint water, I have a towel, and I'm just wearing something that I already have paint on, so that's good for me. Let's have another look at this painting here, which is still nameless. We're just all naming it whatever we want today. It was really fun looking up kind of examples of palm trees online, seeing all the different kinds. It really made me realize how different some palm leaves are, kind of based on the photo. These ones are very droopy, lots of thin lines in there. Let's go ahead and start, guys. We're gonna start with our big brush. Any big brush you have is perfect for this. We'll be starting with the nice background here. So first thing I'm doing, everybody, is I'm just dipping this brush into a cup of water. I'm using this trusty yogurt cup personally. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just using whatever you got. And I'm going to start just by applying some blue on that canvas there. Alright, so I've got a nice big brush, I got some blue on it, and I'm just going to put that in the top corner. So I'm going diagonally. I guess that's about 1/3 of the way across, about 1/4 of the way down. You can see I'm just kind of angling it left to right, going from down to up. And because we're in the corner, everybody, you can definitely move your paint to the edge here, kind of along the side, along the top. So next, everybody, I'm going to make a nice purple, and I'll teach you how to blend it into the blue so we get a nice transition in our background. So in order to make purple, you're going to be mixing red and blue together. Did I introduce my plate yet? I don't think I did. This is my Volcano Plate. Welcome to Volcano Plate. Look how big it is. It's getting so big. This is a plate, everybody, I've used for about 5 years, and all the paint has dried and stacked into this beautiful volcano. Look at this thing. Oh my gosh. So if you want to mix some purple together, everybody, I'm just grabbing my big brush. I didn't even wash it off. You can just do red and blue together. And in my painting in the background, I did add a little bit of white to my purple, just to lighten it a little bit. I don't want it to be a lavender. It's just a nice kind of medium purple, let's call it. So just a little bit of white in there. You can see it just brightens up our purple a little bit more. Because we are transitioning, right? We're going from the blue, which should be nice and dark, to a little bit of a lighter color. And you can see down into our beautiful pink next. Beautiful, bright purple. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that just below our blue. Still doing some nice diagonal strokes. Looks like I brought it pretty close to the corner here. I'm kind of sweeping down. Ooh, sweeping down a lot. Let's go like 1/3 of the way. So when I do this, I personally like to put the colors on first and then I blend them. If you're someone who likes to blend as you go, just blend as you go. There's no rules here. Guys, if you ever want to change up what I'm doing, that's kind of the point. This is just supposed to like inspire everybody to get painting. If you want to follow exactly along, you can. If you want to change things up, you can. It's all up to you. Painting should be just fun for you. So create the colors you want, create the designs you want. It's all customized. All right, so I have 2 nice colors here, but I want to blend them together. I want them to kind of mold into one another, right? So I'm going to be taking my brush. There's no extra paint on it. It just has the, remaining purple paint. And I'm going to sweep in between those 2 colors. And you can see what happens is my brush kind of picks up a little bit of both, moves them together, so they transition. You go from blue to like a blue-purple into purple. All right, cool. So the next color is this beautiful hot pink color. So I'm going to wash off my brush now at this point because we are kind of switching colors. We don't want any remaining purple or blue on here. I'm going to mix together some red and white. I'm personally trying to make a beautiful hot pink. So I'm using about half, maybe a little extra red between those 2 colors there. So I'm grabbing my pink and I'm going to put that probably about just below halfway. I'm going to sweep it kind of across like this. I'd call that about 1/3 of the way up, roughly. And same thing, I'm just gonna do some nice big back and forth strokes. Once I reach the purple, I will blend into it, and I'll reteach you how to blend just in case you want to see me do it again, but you can again go at your own pace there. Okay, so I've reached my purple, so now what I can do is blend it. So you can go at your own pace here. Again, if you're still adding pink, just keep going, but I'm just sweeping in between my pink and purple, and I'm blending those two together now. You can see I kept it pretty smooth in terms of keeping my purple up here, keeping my pink down here. If you want to make it a little streaky, you can definitely do some like purple and kind of streak it in if you want, or grab a little extra pink and streak it into your purple, but I'm kind of keeping it a little more separated today. So you can see I'm going over top a lot here. That was because my purple was a little sticky. If you're finding it's a little hard to blend, it might be because your purple is also a little sticky, maybe a little bit dry. You can just keep stroking over top, or you can grab a little bit of your dry color, which would be purple, and you can use that in between your pink and purple. All right, guys, next color is going to be a peachy color, a nice peach, beautiful peach. So that's kind of our in-between transition between our pink and our very, very pale kind of yellow here. So we can take the big brush here, and peach is going to be made by mixing yellow and red together. So you can even use your pink. Actually, I'm going to lighten mine up a bit. So let's do that together. We can grab a little extra white, plop it on top of your pink to make more of a light pink, because you can see our peach is a pretty light color. You can kind of see it poking in right there. So to make this more of a peach, what we do is just grab, oh, I don't have any yellow. I just want to grab yellow, and it's a dry patch of yellow on my Volcano Plate. So whoopsie. So just a little bit of yellow is needed, everybody, for those painting along. We're just grabbing a little yellow on the brush, putting it right on top of your light pink. You can see what it does. It makes it more of a peach. So you want to avoid adding too much yellow because that'll turn it orange, unless you want orange, but I want more of a peach. So peach is going to be mostly the red and white, and then just a little bit of yellow in there. So I'm just putting this in a small section personally. I just kind of use it in our transition area between our pink and our nice kind of like yellowy white area here. Just a small little strip. Same thing, nice big strokes left and right. And again, I think my pink is a little dry. So if you ever run into an issue where you're trying to blend and something isn't blending because something's a little dry, just grab the dry color on your brush. So my dry color is my hot pink. I'm going to brush in between those two areas. Because what you're doing is you're reapplying the dry color. You're adding a nice brush coat of it. And you can see here, it blended away there. So I'm going to just do that all the way up. Let's go. So I've washed off my big brush here. I'm going to be mixing together lots of white with a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to throw a little bit of red in there as well. Tiny bit of red. So this is going to be what I call a nice soft orange. Nice like creamsicle color. This painting is full of such a nice, beautiful colors. I think I was probably thinking of food the whole time. Okay, and you can put that right below your peach so you can see it's a little bit softer, a little more on that orange kind of yellow side. And the other thing I do with this color, everybody, is instead of going like kind of upwards like I've been doing, I'm going to even it out a little bit. Not even out, but I guess I'm going to kind of curve and then curve a little more straight at the end. So it's going to still kind of curve up, but it's more so with a downwards curve. Minor detail, but that's what I did just to kind of switch it up a little bit. Same thing, I'm blending it in, so I just kind of quickly went up to my peach, and I'm now sweeping across back and forth, blending those two sections. Okay, a little bit of a quicker step. We're going to try our best to kind of quickly put on the white, and then that way we can use it as it's still wet and blend in a little bit of this kind of nice yellow tone you have here. We'll be doing clouds on top later, but just the yellow for now to make it a little bit more wispy and streaky. We've got a nice clean brush here. I'm grabbing white paint, and again, I'm going to try my best to quickly put this on because I want this to be wet for the step after this one. So you can see I'm putting it everywhere underneath my kind of creamsicle color here. So I'm going all the way to the bottom at this point. This will cover the rest of my canvas. You should definitely blend it as well, so you can blend it into your creamsicle color above. So I'm just lightly swiping back and forth in between that creamsicle color and the white, so it just softens up that final edge there. Okay, so I'm just grabbing that same brush, this nice big brush I've been using. I'm going to grab just a little bit of yellow. I even wiped off a little, I second guessed there. And then that way, when I apply it on the canvas, only a little bit's going to come off. What I'm doing is I'm just putting a few very quick horizontal streaks across. I'm not worried about how they're looking right now. I'm just going to leave them there. And I like this yellow glow that I had up here, so I'm going to do that too. I'm going to do kind of like a yellow streak right near the top. So I just swept my brush across. So now I have all these just sporadic, very harsh looking streaks everywhere. And what you can do now is just wash off your brush. Try your best to also wipe it on a towel or paper towel just so there's not a lot of water. And you're just going to sweep that clean brush over top of your streak. So I'm starting with this nice curve up here to make kind of that yellow glow. And then I'm going to move down and I'm just going to streak across. And what happens is your brush pushes the yellow into the white, blends it in, softens it up. And look at that, you got a nice streaky sky. It's kind of white, it's kind of yellow. Who knows what it is? Just anywhere in between. You can do this as much or as little as you like. You can see I'm going to keep it pretty soft here. I really like to blend these in so they're very, very subtle. All right, so that's what mine's looking like. Again, you can see very, very soft. Lots of white hanging around on mine. So after this step, everybody, I actually take a little bit of a pause because I do want to let this dry a little bit because we'll be doing our clouds on a nice dry surface. So after you're done kind of blending your white and your yellow together, you just take a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a break. I'm so glad, Kim! Join the Volcano Plate Club! I hope everybody is starting a volcano plate at this point. Come on, catch up to me. If you paint like 10 times in a day for a couple months, maybe you can make yours nice and big like mine. I don't know, Catherine, I still haven't weighed it. I don't have a scale in here in my apartment. It's heavy. You want to hear it? Brace your ears, ready? That was it. I'm not kidding, this thing weighs a ton. This could be used as a weapon, probably. Like, if someone were to break into my apartment and I would be like, hey, yeah, and just throw it at them, it would knock them right out. So Dad's always concerned for my safety, and you should just know that I have this big thing. And I'm safe. There you go, Dad. I don't need any pepper spray. I just need a volcano plate. It's fine. So the next step, everybody, I'll be making some clouds. Check these out, I love these. So my clouds kind of stick, you can see, in the nice kind of white light section. I maybe brought one up a little higher. I'll be using a different brush. I'm using this kind of medium-sized brush here. Mine's a medium round. If you have a medium flat, that's totally fine, but I just like to use something with kind of denser bristles. You can see the bristles are still long, but they're kind of more pulled together. And what I'll do is I first do my cloud steps in a little bit of yellow. So you can see how they're kind of like multi-layered. There's this nice yellow layer, and then I put some orange on top. So it creates a little more of a darker layer on top. And then I go in with a little bit of white. Maybe you can see the little bit of white stacked on. That's a little bit better there. Yeah, it's kind of like 3 layers, all the same technique, just kind of placement's a little different, and obviously the color's a little different. Let's do it. I'm gonna grab my yellow paint. And the key to this is dry brushing, everybody. So we're only gonna be using a small amount of paint, and we're going to be kind of rubbing it off of our brush onto the canvas. So it'll kind of make this scraping noise. It's not the most pleasant noise, but it means you're doing it right. If it's kind of scraping and going, that's what you want. So I'm going to use this brush. Again, I'm going to tap off some yellow on my towel over here, and all that's left is just like my bristles are kind of coated with yellow. See how there's no blobs on there? You can see all those nice bristles. Okay, so here I go. You can choose anywhere in your nice light section here, and I'm going to start rubbing my bristles. I like to do the rubbing in kind of a swirling motion, so I'm moving my brush round and round like this. Just tighter, round, 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 round. And clouds are all different shapes, but I personally like the shape of having kind of like a taller middle, and then it comes back down on the edge here. I'm gonna try and tilt this so you can see. I realize the yellow is gonna be a little hard to see on the light background, but hopefully you can see enough here, maybe just what I'm doing with my brush. So you can see I'm swirling, I'm moving it up, 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 and then I'm coming down, down, down. So I create kind of like a little bit of a bump. See it glistening in the light there? And please note as well, you can see I've kind of created some individual curves too. So while swirling my brush, I'm kind of bumping it up and down as I move it up, so I get these individual little bumps and lumps. So it makes my cloud appear a little fluffier. So it's just that for now, it's just kind of that archway. So once I have that shape, it's kind of like the shape of the top of the cloud, I'm just continuing to rub or swirl my brush down kind of in the middle area there. And then lastly, what I do is I kind of shift my brush left and right and kind of blur out the edges a little bit, wisp out the edges. So you can see the edges are nice and straight, nice and wispy and thin. So you can see I really like kind of the elongated look. You can see it goes up and down, but that's how wide it ends up being. It's very long, so it looks, again, very wispy, like it's kind of blowing around. I'm just going to play with the top a little more. And maybe you noticed I didn't reload my brush that whole time. I used just that tiny amount of paint, and that was important because it comes off super nice and soft like this, allows you to get some nice wispy streaks like that. I have a feeling you'll see this a little better when I do orange, but hopefully you're getting the gist of it there. I'll keep going. I'll keep doing more if you want to see. So I do the same thing. I'll just choose a spot. I'll start rubbing my brush. There was a little too much paint on there, so I just wiped it off a little extra. Round and round and round, going from left to right, but also bumping up as I go, bumping up and down, but mostly up. And then I'll come back down. I'm going to keep rubbing in the middle of that cloud there, so the middle needs a little love. We're going to rub some yellow in there too. And then lastly, I wisp left and right with my brush, just lightly, again, very lightly rubbing, just moving that small amount of paint around. That makes it look nice and wispy, like it's kind of moving with the sky. Ooh, there's a big hair. Oh, get out of there. Get out. So one thing to note, everybody, too, is I started off with this one. You can see it's pretty even, pretty symmetrical. Like I go up, 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 down, down, down. I really like to switch it up so you get a variety of clouds. So this one kind of goes up, 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 up very casually, and then down very quickly. So I think that's great. That way you get lots of different clouds while using the same technique. They'll all look a little bit different. So I'll do another one. I'll try and make it a little different as well. So remember, this is fantastic practice because this is just the first layer of 3. I'm going to be adding some orange on top, and that's going to give it even more dimension. So if you feel like they're looking a little flat right now, that's the reason we add some orange. It's the reason we add a little white on top. It gives it a lot more fluffiness and dimension. So there you go. I'll show you one more thing too. You can add clouds right next to clouds if you want. Even if they kind of combine a little bit, it'll look a little bit messy for now because it's going to be lots of yellow, right? It's going to make it look like one big cloud. You're going to be like, oh no, what did I do? But I'll show you this. When we add the layers, you'll be able to show the viewer which cloud is in front of the other one. So with the yellow, it's going to look like one big old shape. And then what we do is we add orange to the bottoms of them, whites to the top, and that helps really show this cloud versus that cloud. So if you want to try stacking some, try it out. So I'll try and mimic what I did over there. I'm just stacking on a second cloud kind of right behind my other one, even though it's going to look very combined right now. It's going to look like kind of all one big shape. I'm not going to worry about it right now. It's going to hold together when we do our second steps here. So you can still see they're kind of separate shapes, but again, they're still together and we want to make them look like one is behind another one, and we'll do that with our other steps coming up. And always remember too, if you absolutely hate something, first of all, give it a chance. But second of all, if you've given it a chance and you're like, I don't like it, you can cover it up, right? You can always wait for it to dry. You can put some white on top. But I always try my best to give it a chance. Either alter it or wait for it to dry a little bit and add to it. I think it's cool to kind of see what you can do with those happy little accidents, as Bob calls them. So this orange, I would say it's pretty much our creamsicle color. Remember the creamsicle color we made up here? It was just a very, very light orange. We make that, we use the same technique, we're dry brushing. The only difference is this time, we're keeping it a little lower in the cloud. And then that way we have the nice yellow glow that we worked so hard on. It's kind of on the top, on the edges here, wisping out. And the orange stays more at the base. So it's kind of like in the middle, kind of wisps on the bottom there. And again, it creates some layering. All right, so let's make that creamsicle color, that nice orange, yellow, and red, and then a little bit of white in there. So it's gonna be the same steps. Again, I grabbed that color, I wiped it on my towel, and I'm lightly rubbing. So you'll notice it comes off a lot more prominent this time because it's of course a darker color, but you can see what I'm doing is I'm trying to stick to the base of the cloud. So I'm letting the top really kind of glow and shine, but I'm still doing that rubbing motion, still coming kind of back down here. You can rub, you can go back and forth, it doesn't matter. You can even tap if you want to try that. But again, this is just something I've learned that works for me. You should learn what works for you. And then you can wisp a little at the bottom here. And fill up the middle a bit more. You can kind of make it a little lopsided too, so the orange doesn't have to perfectly make a nice perfect arch of the yellow. It can kind of stick a little closer to the bottom and then abruptly go up. It's kind of like you're creating a second cloud on top of your first one, right? So it can differ a little bit. I would say as long as you're leaving somewhat of a yellow glow around anywhere, that's fine. So that's a good example there. So I kind of followed the pattern of going up and then down slowly, but again, I'm not following the exact shape at all. It's just kind of its own little thing down here. with your stack cloud, you might want to avoid wisping right on top of the foreground cloud. You want to choose, of course, which cloud is in the foreground. I'm choosing this bottom one to be in the foreground. So instead of wiping right on top, I'm just gonna maybe try and rub that away if I can. I should have maybe rubbed here, let that stay so that I can have this in the foreground. But again, we're gonna add white. I can just make sure to add white right here so that this cloud really pulls forward compared to the other one. So I'm going to darken my orange just for this one specifically. Just on mine, I noticed my orange was not really showing up. So if you have a cloud more in your kind of pinky peachy area, you can do the same thing. Just darken up your orange a tad, and that way it'll pop off a little bit more. So I just added a little more red and a tiny bit more yellow. You can see now it pops off a little bit better here. Cleaning my brush, same brush. Grabbing a little white, tapping it off on my towels. There's only a tiny bit left. What I would say with the white is we add the least amount of white. That's number one. Number two, the placement is closer to the top. You can either go right at the top or maybe even at the top of your orange. So either top of yellow or top of orange. See how it just kind of, it's like a nice little highlight to your clouds, especially this one you can see up here. And then third of all, I do keep it nice and soft. You can see how soft it is, but if you would like to experiment with just a tiny bit more paint, it might be kind of nice. I kind of like these more prominent white strokes. You have maybe a couple little white curves that really fluff up the cloud. And I like to use just a little extra paint for that, and then that really pops off again for the curves. I like to go with my brush, just with that noise too, very important. Say it as you do it. So again, a little extra paint on your brush. You still want to wipe it off, but I would be a little more daring with this one in terms of how much paint. Let's go back to my original cloud. I've got my white all ready to go here. It was wiped off. Still doing these swirls, and I'm again sticking closer to the top. You can go maybe a tiny bit into the core if you want. If you need to soften things up, you can certainly, add it to wherever you want to soften. And again, I'm going to be a little more daring. I'm going to grab a little more white. I'm going to do that again. See that? See how I just dimmed it down a little bit there? Not a whole lot, but enough that it's not like too punchy, in my opinion. Again, I'm just grabbing a tiny bit more white. I'm still tapping it off, but I'm kind of layering it again. I really like the look of having a couple strokes that are a little brighter. See how those are covering and these ones are more transparent. You can even, again, tap it on rather than swirling that, but it might be a little nicer if you want more of the prominent white. Look at that, see? You gotta trust it. You gotta trust it and say, all right, let me see. Cool, I'm good with that one. Let's go on to the next one. All right, let me show you these two clouds here. If you have any friendly clouds that are kind of close to one another. So again, the white is, I would say, the most important part in this step. Making sure that you're really highlighting the top of the foreground cloud so it really sticks in front. So it's okay if maybe some of the yellow, again, kind of mixed in, or the orange, but as long as you put this white right on top, you can see what it does. It pulls this cloud forward a bit, and it makes it look like it's literally in front, right? This guy I'm going to be a little more subtle with my white just because, again, he's in a darker background, so the white's really going to pop off. So I'm just making sure I'm going in with a little bit of white to start. It's always safer to start with a small amount. You can always stack on more, right? So if you're ever nervous, just really wipe off your brush a few times, try it out, and again, you'll get more and more comfortable. Good. I'm going to stop there. Oh, Sybil, I'm jealous. I want mine to look like cotton candy. Honestly, you could have a cotton candy sky. I would love that if I had a cotton candy looking sky. Oh my gosh. Oh, and you know what? Oof. Remember when we were doing the orange and I was like, we do one more thing with the orange. I didn't do that one more thing. Are you guys curious what it is? I did technically swipe some dry orange on here. Oops. I will do it just because it is here, just in case you want to do it. If you're happy with what you have, you do not have to add this, but you can see some more prominent streaks here. I used the orange to make those. So you have those yellow soft streaks that we did earlier. I used a little bit of the dry brushing orange and did a couple of those. Grabbing my brush, grabbing a little more orange, tapping it off, and you're pretty much just making horizontal lines. That's all I did, is I went back and forth lightly. And I liked that because, again, it kind of streaked up the sky a little bit more, and it almost made it look like there were a couple clouds that were literal wisps, because we had the yellow ones doing that, and now I just have a few orange ones as well. All right, palm tree time. So what I'm gonna do is I'll start with our nice big trunk. So what I did with my trunk is I just started with a thin black line going about 3/4 of the way up, and then I slowly thickened it up, and you can see I add a little bit of kind of a ridge detail here. So I'll show you how to do that, but essentially all it is taking your brush and just kind of going wiggling on your way down. It kind of wiggles in and out, in and out, in and out very quickly, so you get this nice smooth ridge. So I'm gonna use the medium-sized brush I was just using for my clouds here. Okay, and I'm sticking mine smack in the middle of my painting. So find the middle the best you can. I'm gonna look here and try my best to figure out the middle. Okay, and again, I started with a straight up and down line, and I would say it comes about 3/4 of the way up. So pretty much like the top of your pink area, I would say. If you followed along with about how much pink, purple I was adding and where, you can kind of follow along with that. So I just did a little shaky line there. You can see it's not the thinnest line, but it's still thinner than my trunk, so I have some flexibility with where to move it. So again, you can start with one line just to kind of show yourself where you want to go, and then that way if it's a little off center, you need to move it, you can thicken it one way or the other, right? You can kind of shift it a little bit. So that's why I like to start with a nice small line, and I can move it around where I want. In terms of the width, I would say it's maybe the slightest amount wider at the bottom, and it gets just slightly thinner on the top, but barely any. You can see it's a pretty consistent width all the way up, as palm trees are. They're maybe just a tiny bit wider closer to the bottom. You can just end it however you want. You can see our middle gets very cluttered anyway, so it does not need to be anything fancy up here. All right, so if you want to watch me here, I just grabbed a little more black paint on my brush, and now that I have my trunk, I can just concentrate on the edge. What I do is I press my brush in the middle of the trunk here, and then what I do is I watch the outside. So I'm going to watch the left-hand side, my left, and I'm just moving my brush in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out as I go. Watching those outside bristles, and see what they're doing. They're making a little bit of a ridge. Pressing my bristles down, and as I go down, I'm going in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. It does help to have a fresh amount of paint on here so you get some nice clean edges. So rather than using a small amount of paint, you know, again, there's no blobs, but there's a fresh amount on here. Yeah, so that's one side. Let's do the other side. Maybe you can see a little better this way. So pressing down, and then watching my bristles on the right-hand side this time. I'm going to move down and start to wiggle my brush. Ready? In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. You might have a big bump or two like that. That's fine. You can leave that alone, or you can just maybe, you know, alter the bumps around it, make it a little bigger around it, and that'll help kind of hide it a little bit more. There he goes. He just blends in a little bit better now. All right, check this thing out. I've never really looked at palm leaves as much as I had for this painting before. Usually when I do palm leaves, I kind of start from the middle, I work all the way out. And for this tree, I noticed all these big like branches on the leaves. Like there wasn't all this foliage until the very end here. So very like hanging, very heavy, as if they just have these small little things they're attached to, and then all of this stuff on the ends and bottoms, right? So that's kind of the look I'm going for personally. So what I did is I did one at a time. Because some people like to kind of plan things out. They'll do all of the small things and then kind of add all the foliage on top. You can do that if you want, but personally I like to kind of work one at a time just to kind of see how they looked individually and then stacked more on top. I start with a thin line of black, and then you can see all these are just kind of thin lines kind of hanging. That's how I describe them. They're all very much hanging off. So even if they're high up, you can see they kind of go up and then come down again. They're all just very bendy, hanging all down, right? Note that they're all kind of near the ends, maybe about halfway down is where they start. And you can see that they get very thick in the middles as well. So you can see all of these, they're pure black in the middle. It's really just the outsides where you start to see all of the nice detail. Everything starts to split apart and hang down. But yeah, let's look at this guy. You can see all of its little pieces are hanging down. They don't really get longer or shorter, but I guess because they're coming to a tip, maybe they bunch up a little bit more. So that's kind of where you get the shape, right? They start very wide and they kind of come to a tip. It's just because there's less, I guess, hanging on, and they kind of sprawl out a little bit more. So it kind of looks like they come to a tip, but it's not like they get any shorter or anything like that. I guess you can note as well, anything that's kind of straight out like that, the top edge, you can still see it, but it hangs. So you won't be doing anything spiky up here. You'll be kind of turning them down. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing my detail brush, I'm grabbing black paint, but I'm also dipping my brush in my water because that helps water down the paint a little bit, and I found that very helpful when I was trying to do those little thin lines at the ends of my leaves. I'll show you that closer in a minute, but even just for the first little branch or stem of the leaf, I like to use a little bit of a watery black. It'll help really get a nice smooth, thin, consistent stroke. So you can start anywhere in the middle, even if you want to just like mark a little area and just kind of sprawl all these from that area, or if it's at the top of your trunk, that's fine, whatever. So I'm just going to start with a nice, I need to put this down to do this. Nice kind of curved line coming out. I'll start with one of these ones over here. So I'm going to come out. It's going to hang kind of down a little bit. So again, very heavy. If you're worried about how long or how short to make these, start a little shorter. It's a lot easier to make them longer, right? You can kind of add the individual leaves and make it longer as you go. So I'm going to start wherever I want, wherever I think about halfway down is. So let's say I'm starting about here. And again, it's going to be a lot of patience and a lot of work, but we're just going to be adding very thin lines coming out. So I'm going to be starting here, and I'm going to be dragging these kind of down. All very clustered. They're all kind of crisscrossing as they go. These are created because I'm using this watered down black paint. So it's not totally liquid. It's just that I'm dipping my brush in the water. I'm tapping into the paint. You can even wipe your bristles on the side of your plate if you want. But again, this really helps me create some nice thin lines. So I'm trying my best to really get them nice and tight together, but you can see sprawling and separating on the ends. You'll have some that are a little longer, kind of like gangly looking. You'll have a few shorter. That'll all add to your leaf. And again, I find it important to really fill up the base. So if you want to go back to the very base here and really just brush on black paint, you're not really making individual lines at that point, you can do that just to really thicken up the base a little bit more. So again, you only really see the ends here. See how filled up that ended up being? I just took black. You don't worry about lines here, just kind of caking it on top, filling that up. And that's everything hanging down, right? It makes sense. Gravity's kind of pulling these down. They're all very hangy, very loose. They curve a little bit, like they can be nice and messy. They don't need to be straight. Again, overlapping each other. I guess one thing I'll say is I do throw a few short ones kind of at the start here. But otherwise, I would say the lengths are all about the same. These ones are just hanging down lower because they're lower down that branch there. Okay, and then I'm doing the top edge here, and it's the same idea, but the only difference is because it's the top edge, things are going to be hanging down again. So you still want to see that side, but they're not going to be like sticking out. They're not going to be flaring out just like these are. They're going to be a little more tight and maybe curving kind of down as they go. So see how I'm kind of going up and then down again, because again, gravity's pulling them down. So you still want to see them. They're just not going to be, you know, very perky. They're not going to be sticking straight up. They kind of come up and then immediately come down. And the more you stack on, the more you'll start to see that, and the more you'll start to fill up the middles too. Again, it looks just like very wet, very heavy, droopy. So you start with that, and you can make them a little longer. Like this is looking good already, but you can make them a little longer if you wish. If maybe you're looking at this and you're like, oh, I could thicken up the middle a little more and extend a few of these guys, do it. You can extend a few extra. Maybe you want to wait until you add more palm leaves and kind of make that judgment later. Those are really the basic tips there. Nice thick middle, very hanging looking leaves. There you go. So it looks so weighed down. It's very heavy. Yeah. So that's just one. So like I said, it's pretty much the same thing all the way around. I'm going to walk you through my thoughts as I go around, because again, things might kind of twist and turn a little differently, but as long as you think of it that way, that things are being pulled down. If you have an edge on the bottom, great, you can do some straight down ones. If you have an edge on the top, you'll have to curve them quickly and hang them down, right? If they're on the top, they might swing a little left or a little right. You can make them either curve or you can make them really harshly edged. Like, let me show you. Some of these guys up here, you know how sometimes the leaves kind of snap? They might go like, you know? Again, sound effects are important, but yeah, very edgy, very sharp, versus some might be a little more curved. See, that guy curves like he's kind of blowing a little more. So just switch those up too. They can be sharp or curved. Okay, so you guys just, again, now you can go at your own pace. This is really all there is left, just adding all these around. Here's another variety tip. You can make some that are super thin. This guy's just super droopy. Maybe he's not quite as big as his friends over here. It's just very thin and just kind of coming down like that. A little shorter as well. He's growing. He'll have his time. Yeah, make these lines a little tighter together to make it thinner. You can still see the individual strokes, but just a little closer together. I kind of compare to my other leaves here. So if this guy's angled the same way, I'm like, okay, I want to match them maybe a little bit. If one's a little higher, a little lower, that's fine. But just to keep kind of the roundness of the whole thing, that'll help. So you can see how they're all kind of curving down and then up, even though I have this individual guy here who's just a little short. In general, they're all starting to form a nice kind of curve around. So you get that nice circular shape in the end. If you want another close-up of the top edge, again, what I do is I pull out and then immediately curve down, following the direction of my branch a little bit. So they still have a little bit of height, but mostly they're curving down. Curving or doing that sharp edge, either one works. You can do some abrupt ones that go really high up and then curve right down, like doing a few of those, kind of like a spidery look, and they all kind of come down on the side here, on the tip. I think that guy's good too. Again, it's cool. I think it's cool to have a couple really individual ones like that. It really makes it look a little more realistic. Like a few of them are really poking out. And then, sure, Allison, maybe I'll skip right to a top leaf just to show you what I do. So I'll go straight up, or mostly straight up maybe. The leaves on the top, they kind of want to choose whether they're going left or right. And you're probably either going left or right depending on the side you're on. So on the left-hand side, they still want to kind of pull up and out of the branch. So you can pull them out a little bit, but then they immediately say, oh, gravity, and they go woo down like that. So they go, so they're trying their hardest, and then they're like, oh, it's too heavy. So they kind of abruptly come out and then curve down. Start with a few short ones if you want down here, and then they get nice and long. And then at the top, what you can do is you could do a few more at the top that are a little more straight up, like maybe the top ones, the very top ones are really reaching up high and they're like, yes, I've made it. They're coming out. They still curve a little bit over, but they are trying their best to reach up high in the sky. And that way you keep the nice kind of tip at the end there. It keeps it a little more kind of thin and together, right? You're getting the few that are nice and straight up or kind of squiggling up. And then as you go on the other side, it's pretty much the same thing. You can do, again, a couple that kind of curve up and out if you want. But for the most part, I like to do this whole up and then down thing. Yeah, let's do a middle one. So I'll show the middle and then I'll try my best to replicate. So again, it's as if maybe a leaf is coming straight at you or straight back. It's kind of weird to describe because you can see it's not really you're creating a stem, you're not really creating a line that you're following along with. I just kind of did a few kind of hanging down leaves. You can see very close to the middle, so as if a stem was right here. It doesn't really make sense to make the stem and then do it. I just kind of did the hanging lines by themselves, you know, because you wouldn't really see the stem anyway if it's coming straight at you or straight back. So let me just do one here. It'll look maybe a little out of place just because I haven't gone all the way around, but you can just kind of see what I'm doing. So again, I'm not worried about a stem. I'm just going to be doing some hanging lines kind of coming out on the right here. Maybe some kind of come a little more out, but some are hanging. Lots of hanging, guys. And you can see how slowly it just starts to fill up the space. So again, it's so loose, like I didn't even choose anywhere where these are starting. They're just all hanging out on their own, right? So I did one there. You can maybe do one a little higher up, just flicking out this way. Now just add them in small little kind of bunches or areas until you feel like the middle is full enough. And then I'll go back to the middle if I feel like I need to fill it up, but that's basically it. One more comment about placement. Every now and then I try my best to get a nice close tight one from the next one, just doing some branches or leaves that are very close together. So again, you get variety. So you're not doing each and every one the same amount of space. You're not going around like a clock. You're trying to mix it up a bit, make it a little more realistic and therefore a little more sporadic. Okay, so mine's looking pretty complete. Again, I think I could, you know, fiddle around and make these a little tighter. It looks like I left a lot of space on some of the stems here, like a little lopsided. These guys are a little tighter and these guys are a little longer. So again, it's up to you to kind of do that to your own tree, make things longer or tighter in the middle if you need. Might add one more just to, again, offset kind of the evenness of some of them. Maybe I'll add one, you know what, it's looking a little short over here, so let's add one right here. Cool. Yeah, this guy's a little more like gangly than my other guy. That's fine. Just a little bigger. It's grown a little more. All right. I think I'm good with mine. Yeah, I'll do a little, maybe I'll do my signature in a cloud. Why not? Just because it was white on white, right? I hid it in my little cloud. Okay. yeah, I'll end off here. So thanks again, everybody, for coming, and I'll see you at the next one. Okay, bye.